Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. I have with me Srimati Shobha Swamy. The last time we met her, it was on the day of the Seattle Council vote. She had joined from the ground and she had explained what was happening, how things were leading up to this vote. So now we have her again joining us. Let's welcome her. Shobhaji, namaskaram and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaste. I'm so happy to be here and so glad I could be on your channel, Sri.
My pleasure, Shobhaji. Now, you were the representative of CoHNA in that Seattle Council vote, and you are kind enough to bring not just yourself, but a couple of other volunteers to come and express their feelings about how this vote was being planned. It's a hush-hush job. Actually, it's like ambush marketing, that sort of stuff that happened. Kind of walk us through from where we left off that day. It was like 9:30 or so in the morning, and at 12 o'clock was supposed to be when people were supposed to, call in and express their views. And then at, I think, 2 o'clock, there were some in-person representations. Now we are finding out there were 20,000 emails that were sent to the Seattle Council saying yes, that it should be there. And there were only 4,000 saying no, there should be no caste discrimination. Now, I'm just giving you some data because that has just come in. Seattle Council, I don't know what they thought, what kind of yardstick they used, because clearly three things I did not see happen. I'll talk about all that later. First, I want you to share your thoughts with our viewers as to how you felt the whole exercise was. Take it away.
So after we met up at 9 o'clock, things started getting a little more heated up. They were ready with their banners, and they were about, I think, slowly but surely gathering strength. So we were about 23 to 25 of us, really brave. I must not forget to mention the brave and bold Seattle Hindu Americans who came up in spite of all their previous experiences. And it was a cold morning as well. We stood in line, like I mentioned last time, at 6:30 itself. And once we were inside, we all lined up, and we had about 20 people ahead of us who were from the pro-ordinance side. And we were given a few spots right after that, since we came that early in the morning. And they had posters. They had taken over the lobby of the city hall. They had put up all their posters, and then in plain display, as well as along the steps of the city hall, the lobby inside. And then they had a mic and speakers set up. So by around 11 o'clock, I think, they started setting up their speakers and mic, and they started giving out small, short speeches. That's what they called a march. And we thought it was going to be a march on the streets. At least that's what I thought. But there was no march. This was a march that they were giving speeches on the mic. And so what we did was, we had a very, very energized, enthusiastic Hindu American crowd. And we started shouting slogans about, what's the hurry, why can't you wait? And, don't tell all these lies about us. And slogans such as that. And we outshouted their speeches. So pretty much they couldn't hear their leaders speak at all. We didn't let even one of them speak. So that was a very exhilarating kind of experience. This was the first time I was involved in something like this. And they were quite taken aback. They tried to shut us down, and they tried to tell us to keep quiet and all of this. But we were a very, charged up, rambunctious bunch there. And so we succeeded in outshouting them. And right thereafter, I think around 12 o'clock or 12:30, they opened up the doors for us to go in and start signing up. So as we walked in, we realized that the people waiting ahead of us were not all the same people who were standing in line from 6:30. So there was some confusion going on around who was in line ahead of us and even who was in line behind us, because those of us who came a little late because of last minute notice and not being able to take time off of their jobs, they were kind of lagging behind, but they were really pushed way behind, even though they had come earlier and had a spot in line. Thinking back, I was thinking that we should have demanded a number for them as well. Though we were given numbers, those of us who came at 6:30, and we had to bargain to keep our numbers in place as well. So anyways, so once we entered the city hall, by then they had about 100 of their people, and there were so many of them who came really, right around 1:30, I think, right before the 2 o'clock city hall opened for deliberation on this. And they all somehow got to speak up time, and they got somehow ahead of a lot of the others from our side who had come. So there was a lot of confusion going on, and some amount of rigging. I would definitely say that there was some amount of rigging as well going on. They had an added advantage because they knew the city hall, not only the city hall, but the aid, Kshama Sawant's aid, was helping them. So it was all, all rigged up against us anyways. So once inside the city hall, we signed up at the roster and then took to our spots. And typically it's always in person first and then online calls. But that day they decided to take online calls first and then in person. So they switched things around, and pretty much I think only 5-6 of us got to speak, though we were 23 of us there. Time ran out, and they had shortened the time as well as we went on. So we tried to put up a bold front and tell them that we should buy more time, at least, if nothing else. Think through it and let us present our case. And those were some of the words that and also hear us out in terms of our lived experience as well. So these were some of the things that we had put forth. But as you all were watching, what the proceedings were thereafter. The voting, as well as the president's speech, as well as ending Sarah Nelson's speech, and then of course the voting and Kshama Sawant's conclusion.
Let me understand a little bit about the Seattle Council composition itself. Did I miss something? Isn't Kshama Sawant on her way out, or is she already on the way out? Is she already out of the council? I thought her term was over.
I think she is on her way out. And this was a last thing, a feather in her cap, so to speak, on the way out.
Clearly she's trying to get some brownie points for something bigger. Now, I have a special question I have an unusual question to ask you, Shobhaji. How much of this is her personal ambition to be bigger than what she is? And how much of it is really a movement, in your opinion?
Very good question. Very good question. I think it's a combination of the two. As always, it's not always the one thing. The movement itself is it's a framework that is driving the movement, getting more and more people into this movement. So they seek after people who may have, really undergone some hardships in life, or some ups and downs in life, perhaps, or maybe not that even, maybe they too come from backgrounds that are pretty comfortable on that side. But the rhetoric and the whole takeaway for me was that they wanted to break down the capitalistic, form of business in the United States. That was Kshama Sawant's speech, as you heard her. And they definitely are promoting a form of socialism that is probably not sustainable. We always need a good balance of, capitalism as well as socialism, so that, all populations are taken care of, and those that are disadvantaged could get, could get ahead and get some support to pull themselves up. But this was not the case. This is a sure case. It's a copybook style, a playbook that they have mastered, and they have repeated it again and again, and they are getting better and better at it, as well as pulling on more people. Because see, if you were a loving, compassionate, a peaceful person, you would really buy into this narrative. So that is why many of the youngsters buy into this narrative, simply because it's a very compassionate narrative. You want, equality, you want those that are downtrodden or not able to have all the opportunities, get opportunities, they need help. All of these things are ring very true to us as well, and this is how everybody is brought up as well. We bring up our children this way, to be compassionate, loving, caring individuals, to care for others in your community and in society. And so, but milking this and making a villain out of a minority community is not the way out. And also, the rhetoric of a victim-victimizer framework and an oppressor-oppressed framework is not only spells disaster for the entire community, but definitely at an individual nature as well. Because you cannot thrive with that kind of a concept in your mind. And we all know, Shriji, that our Vedanta and our Shastras teach us not to play into the victim. Why me? Why am I going through this? To pull up our boots and to move on and to see how we can do something differently. So this is what we have been taught, and our values and principles of Sanatana Dharma and our Shastras tell us this. So sometimes I also feel that we don't play the victim card, long enough and deep enough. So that's the crux of what you were getting at in terms of a playbook.
Viewers, I must tell you that while we were listening in, we picked up a few people. We could recognize them, we could place them. One such individual, I will not name the person. This person is from the Bay Area. Nobody could have been born more from privilege than this individual. His father is a super successful venture capitalist. Good luck to him. We appreciate his success. And this guy was saying the exact opposite. I mean, people were lying through their teeth. I mean, I don't want to kind of put the spotlight on this particular individual, but those of you who follow these events will know who I'm talking about. And Shobhaji, the thing here is many were lying, outright lying. They were not supplying any proof. Yet the Seattle Council found within its wisdom to vote for this resolution. I find that a little bit difficult, because these are people elected by the people of Seattle. Right. Are they being loyal to them? Are they really doing their job? Would you take up any other issue and not look at the pros and cons and decide like this?
Absolutely.
Just because it seems to be something that is not something that might not affect every person in your community, you think that it's okay to sign it? I'm really putting them on the spot. The Seattle Council has much to answer for. Just because nobody came and asked you at that point of time doesn't mean that what you did was right. The least they could have done was to kick the can down the road. I'm not saying in that bad way. I'm just saying deliberate more on it.
Absolutely.
Get the input from the other side to try and understand what this is about. I mean, Santa Clara County did that. They said, look, this is too complex for us to deal with it. And they have closed the whole thing.
Absolutely. And we were hoping for the same, Shriji. We were hoping for the same. But at one point when the president was giving her points, I almost thought that, maybe in the end she's going to conclude that we need to look into it more. And that's one of the things that we urged. We urged them through letters. We urged them through requests for phone calls, requests for a briefing, that let us give you a briefing, at least wait. Because also you must remember that this was absolutely shoehorned. From about 24th January and within 24th February, everything was done. So you can see it was a rush job. It was absolutely a rush job. And I'm surprised that the city council hasn't seen this as a rush job, So that leads me to think that it was an inside job. That leads me to think that there was a major amount of pressure and push from the inside, because one of the city council members was a supporter of this, was the one who brought it to the floor itself. So as a result, we can see that maybe there was some kind of, extreme pressure and severe repercussions if this did not go their way. So that's what it seemed to us, because the Hindu Americans of Seattle have been through a lot in the past, as you already know, and they have taken, they have observed, watched, and see this playbook play before. And like you mentioned, it's fraught with lies, with untruth, and it's unbelievable, the twisting and turning of facts and figures. It's just gut-wrenching to sit there and to have to go through all this. It's a form of abuse, and it's a form of violence against who we are, what we stand for, what is our principles, and what our values are.
Thank you so much, Shobha ji. And I also have to say one more little thing. I know it comes across as a rant, but I just want to mention this. The person who was, the proponent of this, Kshama Sawant, had a recall. This is a very unusual thing. Recalls are very, very unusual. And this recall election, she barely squeaked through. So when somebody has so much opposition for her thought, her process of whatever she analyzes, then this must have really, really make the Seattle Council, the remaining people, to be a little bit more cautious and say, look, this person has as many supporters as opposers. Let us deliberate on this a little bit more. That is a part that rankles me a little bit.
Yeah, I think from what we saw, you're very right. You're very right. But I don't know the makeup of the city council, and I spent about 3 days in Seattle, and we were so emotionally charged up in terms of what the job was at hand, as well as to go through this whole process. It's not very easy. It's very gut-wrenching for the Hindu Americans in Seattle, as well as for me. So I didn't get a chance to look into all the other city council members and why this was such a rush job and how they bought into this rush job. But we did get to meet Sarah Nelson after the
lone
chambers were
dissenter.
closed. Yeah, the one lone dissenter, the 6-1 vote, the one who voted no. And we got to meet her at the end, and I stayed back to talk to her. Thanks to you, Shriji, you put that in my head, and I thought, okay, it's way worth it to stand back, thank her, and just hear a few words from her. And so here's what she told us. She told us that she was from a background of cultural anthropology, and somehow, as things were being stated in that ordinance itself, she says it didn't sit true to her. It didn't sit right with her. And she was just voting by her conscience, she told us. And that she didn't think that this was the right thing to do for the people of Seattle. She really mentioned that part. And then she also mentioned that it was definitely rushed, and that sometimes things don't go to committee. But then this was one of the things that perhaps would have benefited by going to a committee and having a hearing and hearing both sides of the ordinance. Definitely hearing both the sides. So definitely she mentioned that, and she was very brave to stand up against all these other city council members who voted yes. She was the lone voice, but she kept her ground. And she has a very good background as well in cultural anthropology. So she is coming from that perspective. So she said, from what I know, it didn't sit well.
Well, Shobha ji, this is the first among what we expect to be many more such resolutions. Of course, these are meaningless. As a matter of fact, as they start implementing this, they'll find that it is going to disadvantage the very people that they think it's going to advantage. I have done a separate video on that and explaining what has happened, because Bay Area has seen some, lumpy resolutions like this.
But remember, this is not a resolution. It is an ordinance that can be signed into law by the mayor within the next 30 days or 10 days, something like that.
Well, yeah, okay, you're right. It's not a resolution; it's a law. It's like it affects only what, the city of Seattle, or is it a county itself?
The jurisdiction of this ordinance, I do not know, but I do know that we are speculating it will come up in many more city councils around that area, because there's a large number of Hindu American population, large number of tech engineers there in the Seattle area, and that's one of the reasons, I think.
Well, actually, if somebody challenges this thing legally and holds the city responsible, they can actually collect damages from them. Because this resolution, in my opinion, again, I'm not a lawyer, so don't hold me up to it. When somebody has passed a law based on no data from the ground, that makes one to question on what basis did you pass the law?
Correct.
And I hope,
Correct.
I hope the
came to
mayor,
my mind.
I hope the mayor watches this video and understands that this is not so simple. And unlike in other countries in the United States, if you find the city liable, the judge will rap the city on the knuckles and say, pay up. So, I mean, there is a danger here. Let's see what happens. I'm just curious. It just struck me that this was a fairly arbitrary law that was being passed. Again, I'm not a lawyer. Shobha ji, your last thoughts, and then we'll call it a wrap.
Well, it's a wake-up call for all Hindu Americans. We need to realize, learn the repercussions, pay attention to it. Each one of us living here in the United States and beyond, it has larger ramifications in my mind, because just like many other things that were done, it probably will start moving to other city councils in other cities. And so we need to be very vigilant and appraise the city council members way before it comes to the city. That's our next course of action. And we need to be vigilant, active, civic members, and do our civic duty by becoming part of this community to stand up and say no to such ordinances even before they come to your city. So join us at CoHNA, Coalition of Hindus of North America. We are here to support, we are here to guide you, we are here to help you and hold your hand through this whole process. And of course, the Seattle Hindu Americans have a lot of experience as well. We take their advice and their support in getting this, spreading the awareness about this throughout the United States.
Thank you very much, Shobha ji. As always, viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And please don't also forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Do support CoHNA. And Nikunj has been a regular on our channel. I've had many others from CoHNA. Certainly, Shobha ji is a welcome addition. Shobha ji, thank you so much. Namaskar.
Namaste. Namaskar.